Today I'll show you how a Harley is the epitome of if it's not broken, don't fix it. But little do they know, 90% of Harleys today are still on the road and the other 10% made it back to the garage. Everything I'm talking about today is related to the 2000 through 2016 and also the M8 shifter mechanism. With all these little splines and heavy metal being slammed on consistently, gives the service life of a Harley Touring Shifter Assembly less than 20,000 miles. Pretty ironic for touring models, but I digress. If you're going on a road trip or having shifter issues arise, these things you should definitely make time to address before they have time to address your ride or road trip. Probably the first to go is the heel toe shifter, or it can be toe only if you're using a heel shift lever eliminator kit with a spline cover. And taller riders may benefit with the 1-inch extended. If you've already had the luck of the shifter falling off or it caught limp shifter dysfunction and the splines are marred, then it would be wise to replace the inner shift shaft. Fits FLT 82 to 2016. Pingle and vTwinManufacturing.com also make an upgraded shaft with a greasable Zerk fitting at the end. They also have one for M8 Touring V-Twin number 210988. From there, you'll have your first inner shift lever, which will spline into the inner shift lever shaft to operate the shifter rod. There's a spacer between the lever and the inner shaft for all FL Touring twin cam and M8s up until 2020 OEM part number 5817. That you might as well replace in there if you're already going to replace both those components. And if you have a 2020 and up FL, it's the same idea. It's just going to be part number 33600304. However, the most overlooked thing I see is the shifter shaft bushings for all 2000 to 2016 twin cams. Removing and installing the two new ones will make it feel like new in the front. This can be removed without taking off the inner primary, but the outer will still require removal with Jim's part number 5518. If you're in this deep, you might as well replace the rubber mounted shifter rod if it's stock. At least inspect and replace rotted rubber mounted end pieces, because the rubber ends due to vibration will be a failure point down the road. If you don't like the stock one, you can surely find a fancy one to customize your ride. The second inner shift lever hooks the shifter rod into the shifter mechanism. This lever too is a victim to the little splines vibrating and shearing apart. M8 models have something similar, it's just OEM part number 339000175. The rear shifter mechanism is definitely a failure point too. Also make sure it operates smoothly and correctly through all the gears and the splines are in working order. If you're going to replace it, you'll need a trans top cover gasket, full primary gasket kit including the inner primary seal, also known as the primary crankcase seal. And replacing this one is quite more extensive than the others. If you weren't looking to drop the transmission for a Baker, you can use Jim's tool number 5517 to get the mechanism out without having to drop the trans. If you replace the shifter mechanism, it's easy enough to replace the rear shift bushing to help remove slop with Jim's part number 1658. Don't forget your shift shaft seal. It will be OEM 110000101 and installer 767. If you have an earlier model twin cam, chances are it's OEM 34972-02. This will be the 5-speed shifter mechanism for 02 to 05 FL. You will need snap ring pliers to remove the retaining clip holding in the seal, and the best way to prevent damaging the seal bore when removing these seals is by inserting a small GRK screw carefully into the seal. Then a slide hammer with vice grips by Astro Pneumatic works best. If you have a primary leak, you definitely don't want to hit the road for any sort of amount of time with primary and trans leaking onto your final drive belt and possibly your rear tire if not addressed. This is an optimal time to get those seals. I would personally recommend a inner primary bearing kit main shaft seal, and also getting a new clutch plate kit that you might as well do while you've got it open and while you're in there, so you don't have to open it again. If you replaced all the following items and still feel like it's rattling or you can hear a rattle down the road, the best thing you do is a Stevenson Cycle anti-rattle kit. And if you're in Detroit or a suburb, they're great to shop to get service or any part Harley wise. Ultimately, all the shifter components, if not every component on a Harley, is prone to a service life of under 20,000 miles. If you don't want your motorcycle to have limp shifter dysfunction, the best maintenance is always preventative. If anything was beneficial or came in handy, just give a thumbs up and subscribe.